They tell you that in a courtroom, you have to be civil. They tell you that you have to look the person who destroyed your life in the eye and remain calm. But what happens when that person, a convicted serial killer, looks back at you and smirks? I'm Darko, and today we are breaking down one of the most emotional and viral moments in the history of the American justice system. This is the story of Van Terry, a grieving father who did what almost every parent watching has felt like doing. He didn't care about the cameras, he didn't care about the bailiffs, and he certainly didn't care about the law. He had just watched Michael Madison, a monster who strangled his 18-year-old daughter, grin at his pain. In that split second, the courtroom transformed from a place of law into a place of raw, fatherly vengeance. We're going deep into the chilling crimes of Michael Madison, the shadow of Cleveland's dark history, and the moment a father decided to take justice into his own hands. To understand why Van Terry snapped, you have to understand the pure evil of Michael Madison. In July 2013, a foul stench began to haunt a neighborhood in East Cleveland. When police followed the smell to an apartment building, they found a nightmare. 3 women, Shirellda Terry, just 18 years old, Shetisha Sheeley, 28, and Angela Deskins, 38, had been brutally strangled. Their bodies weren't just hidden. They were stuffed into garbage bags and left to decompose in the summer heat behind the building where Madison lived. Madison wasn't just a killer. He was a predator who treated human life like trash. The discovery sent shockwaves through Ohio, raising terrifying memories of Anthony Sowell, another Cleveland serial killer who had murdered 11 women just years prior. Madison seemed to idolize that level of depravity. During his time in lockup, he was even held in the same facility as Ariel Castro, the notorious kidnapper who kept women as sex slaves for a decade. Michael Madison was the worst of the worst, a man with no soul and zero remorse. Fast forward to the sentencing hearing. Michael Madison had been found guilty and was facing the death penalty. One by one, the families of the victims stood up to speak. When it was Van Terry's turn, the room went silent. You could see the weight of the world on his shoulders. He stood at the podium, just feet away from the man who murdered his daughter, Shirellda. Van started his statement by trying to do the impossible. He talked about forgiveness. He said, "Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who has touched our families." He called Madison a clown because he wanted to strip him of his power. He wanted to show the court that this serial killer was nothing but a pathetic, weak individual. But as Van was speaking, he looked over at the defense table. And that's when the world stopped. As Van Terry was pouring out his heart, Michael Madison did the unthinkable. He didn't look down in shame. He didn't cry. He looked at Van Terry and smirked. It was a cold, arrogant grin, a final insult to a father who had lost everything. In that moment, Van Terry didn't see a courtroom anymore. He saw the man who choked the life out of his child, laughing at him. Without a second of hesitation, Van Terry lunged. Dramatic footage shows him flying across the defendant's table, reaching for Madison's throat. His momentum was so great that he nearly cleared the entire table. Madison, for the first time, looked startled as court officers scrambled to pull him away. The gallery erupted in chaos. Deputies swarmed Van Terry, pinning him to the floor while others hustled the smirking killer out of the room. It was raw, unfiltered human emotion. People in the courtroom later testified that they saw exactly what that Madison was intentionally taunting the grieving families. After the dust settled, the question on everyone's mind was, what happens to Van Terry? The Cuyahoga County prosecutor's office had to review the footage to decide whether to charge the distraught father with a crime. The public was outraged at the idea. How could you charge a man for reacting to the monster who killed his daughter? Joseph Froelich, a spokesman for the prosecutor, confirmed that Madison was indeed smirking and that the investigators understood the provocation. Ultimately, the focus shifted back to where it belonged, Michael Madison's fate. Madison was sentenced to death for his gruesome crimes, joining the ranks of Ohio's most notorious killers on death row. Van Terry wasn't just a man who attacked a defendant. He became a symbol for every victim's family who has ever had to endure the arrogance of evil in a court of law. Years later, this footage still circulates as one of the most intense moments ever caught on camera. It sparks a massive debate. Does the law expect too much from victims? Should a father be expected to stay silent while a killer mocks his dead child? Michael Madison thought he was in control, that his smirk would be his final victory over Shirellda's family. But Van Terry showed him that even in a suit and tie, in front of a judge, a father's love and rage are more powerful than any serial killer's arrogance. Shirellda Terry was a bright young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She wasn't just a body in a bag, and her father made sure that Michael Madison and the entire world knew that. Van Terry did what many of us only dream of doing when faced with pure evil. He didn't manage to land a punch, but he sent a message that resonated around the globe. Michael Madison is now waiting for his date with the executioner, while Van Terry remains a hero in the eyes of many. But what do you think? Should Van Terry have been charged for his outburst? Or was his reaction the only human response possible? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your side of this story. I'm Darko, and this has been a deep dive for the Justice Analyst. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Deep dives into the most intense courtroom moments in history. I'll see you in the next one.